You're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about the series Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
Yeah, the same as we always are. And today we're discussing chapters 11 and 12 of the manga. And I also want to just quickly chat about the first episode of the anime because I finally saw it, unlike all you guys who actually had the privilege of seeing it in theaters. Then we're going to summarize chapters 11 and 12, then we'll have our discussion, and then our spoiler discussion. So I finally saw the anime, and I thought it was really nice. Everything that everybody said about it was true. Like, the music was really good. The visuals are really nice. It is quite a bit darker. I saw a comment someone posted on Tumblr that was like, "Why is the new anime so much darker?" And the response was like, "Because it's not a comedy" or something. Like, it was it was funny. But you haven't seen the ending theme yet.
So no, I saw one of the theater showings. So
the ending,
they just kind of smushed the episodes together and didn't have any kind of credits or beginning or anything.
Oh, really? The ending theme is good. I'll save it for you. I won't say anything.
Well, did have little interviews with the dub and Japanese cast.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good. Yeah. The dub is really good, actually.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. I liked it a lot.
The subtitle version is, like, the Japanese voice acting is really good too. But I watched both of them, and then I was like, man, Laura Bailey's still the queen. Like, it's all I have to say. It's so good. If someone who can be Toru and someone who can be Lust, it's just mind-blowing every time I think about it. And I feel like this performance was even better than the first time. Mm-hmm. So, and the other characters, yeah. I mean, they all did really well, but
yeah, it's fun with having so many of the returning voice actors. Yeah. A lot of them, like, those were really early roles for them.
Yeah.
It was probably their first role for some of them, but
yeah,
it was really early on in the days of anime dubbing in America being a thing rather than just, whatever. And so to hear them from their, like, really early on in their careers to now,
yeah,
quite an improvement.
It's interesting. I mean, I thought, like, Eric Vale sounded pretty much the same as Yuki.
I thought he was a lot better because I remember he was probably my least favorite of all the dub voices originally. But like, he still had, the same kind of voice, but I feel like he did a better job of kind of.
I feel like there was more like
character rather than just speaking the lines.
Yeah, I feel like there was more like emotion, I guess, in his voice, which was nice. Mm. I don't know that. In my opinion, is that Eric Vale's voice is not really good fit for Yuki, but I think he did a good job. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was nice, and there were so many. I felt like, so the anime, I mean, people have commented about the original anime being really cheaply animated and stuff, which is obvious. So it's nice. There's so much more, like, detail in the motion in the new version. Like, the one scene that sticks out to me was when Toru picked up Kyo for the first time as a cat, and his little feet, like, flop out of the clothes. I was like, his feet! It just made me really happy. I just think the overall, like, tone and feeling is much nicer. I think you were right when you told me that I would like it. I did like it. I'm really looking forward to the rest. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. I was just excited because I was waiting all this time while everybody else was like, "Oh, I saw the anime. Oh, it's so great." Anyway, finally.
You get there eventually.
Yeah. I'm excited. All right. Anyway, on to our the topic at hand, which is chapters 11 and 12 of Fruits Basket, the manga. If you're reading the Tokyo Pop versions, this is volume 2. And then if you're reading any of the other, like, collect edition versions, this is the end of the first volume. So, like, yay, we made progress again, I feel like.
It's the end of volume 2 also, so double progress.
Yes, exactly. So both of these chapters, I'm going to comment on it more. Both these chapters have a lot of narration. So I try to, like, summarize most of things because I don't want to just repeat what's in the volumes, but this time there's a lot of, like, direct narration about what's happening, so I think there's going to be more, like, direct quotes, just to put that out there before we start. So chapter 11 opens with the narration. The girl called Toru Honda. She doesn't think like most people. She readily accepted the fact that we turn into animals. She's been through more hardships than most high school girls, and yet she's always smiling. It's been 4 months since she started living with us, but there's still something that I haven't grasped. And I wonder if this narration is like Yuki or Kyo's, or maybe it's meant to represent both of them. So the actual action opens at the table. They're sitting at the table again, eating, and Yuki and Kyo are arguing, of course, with Shigure about how returning to the main house to attend the New Year's banquet is like a waste of time, and it was no use leaving if they have to go back. And Toru enters and asks why they're arguing, and Shigure explains that the whole family comes to celebrate New Year's at the main house. And we learned a little bit about this last time, but we get a little bit more exposition about it this time, where we learn that there's also, in addition to regular I guess like an event for the whole family. There's a banquet that's just for the Juunishi, and it can only be attended by people who are possessed by the spirits. And at the banquet, the person who is possessed by the current zodiac spirit does a dance with the New Year's the person who's possessed by the zodiac animal for the next year, for the new year. So they perform a dance together. And Shigure adds on top of this that Yuki's dance from 2 years ago was beautiful, and Yuki cuts him off by throwing daikon at him or something. um, Toru thinks that the banquet is wonderful. It's like just like the legend, but of course Kyo reveals that the cat is not invited. And Toru frowns, looks kind of dismayed, and he's like, well, don't look like that. It's not a big deal. And Shigure teases Kyo that if he went home, Kagura would be so moved that she would kill him. Yuki is like, forget about that. If we go back, then we have to spend the first 3 days of the new year at the main house as well, which would leave Toru alone all during that time. And it's revealed that Toru's family is ditching her to go to Hawaii for New Year's. And so she's staying at Shigure's, which I was like, how rude. Like, I also forgot about this. There's like a little panel with her grandfather in Hawaii, and they're like, Grandpa. But yeah, I forgot that they leave her to go to Hawaii. It seems quite, I don't know what the word is for it. It's kind of, it's just, they obviously don't care about.
Cool.
No, it's not cool. They don't care about her being alone. So Kyo is like, what? You're going to be alone? And Yuki's like, I just said that. And Kyo is like, shut up. This is the first time that I'm hearing about it. And Yuki's like, that's because you don't listen. So it looks like they're about to fight again. Like Kyo actually, if you look at the illustration, he like grabbed Yuki's shirt, but Toru interrupts them and thanks them for thinking of her and asks them not to worry and that they should go home because it's been a long time since they've seen their parents and they should enjoy the new year with their family. And then she's like, I'll take good care of the house while you're away. And then she's like, oh no, I left the bathwater running, and runs off to turn it on. And Shigure is like, we trust you, Toru-kun. And after she leaves, Yuki and Kyo kind of chill out and they announce that they've decided to go back. The narration that we saw from before continues and says that she knows what it means to lose touch with parents because she'll never see her own again. Yuki says that he'll just have to put up with Kido, and Kyo insists that Kagura is not a big deal. We see some more narration again that says, I'm sure she'll be alright. If she insists, then it must be true. After all, New Year's is just another holiday. So we cut to Toru, I think later that day, seeing them off, and they tell each other to be safe and whatnot. Yuki and Kyo look apprehensive as she waves them off, and there's some more narration in the background that's like, I'm sure she'll be fine. Out on the streets, on their way to the main house, Yuki and Kyo are talking about how clumsy, or like all these clumsy and ill-thought-out things that Toru has done, like leaving her window open and falling down the stairs and walking into walls, etc., etc. And in the Yen Press edition, I think it says in the Tokyo Pop edition that she's the kind of person who would choke on rice. And in the Yen Press edition, it actually says she's the kind of person who would choke on mochi, which makes more sense because mochi is something they eat at New Year's. So, Shigure is like, guys, stop worrying so much. But then he throws it out there that there was a burglar in their neighborhood, and Yuki and Kyo like stopped it in their tracks, and they're like, shit, she probably would let him in the house and like serve him tea and ask for his life story. And Shigure says that if they keep standing around in a daze, and then Hana pops up from behind them, and she's like, someone will crash into you. And they all freak out, and they're like, whoa, what a coincidence. And Kyo was so freaked out that he fell over on the ground out of shock. I think it says in the narration, like he fell out of shock or something. So they explain that they're on their way to the estate, and Hana says that Toru told her, and she kind of laments that Toru will be all alone since her mother is no longer there to celebrate with her. As she continues talking, Kyo and Yuki's faces freeze in this look of concern, and Uo and Hana, Hana says that Uo and Hana both offered to spend New Year's with her, but she insisted on them spending time. Toru insisted on them spending time with their families, and she wonders what will become of Toru-kun. She's all alone. And when she sees all the lights and the decorations, she'll think of her mother. And again, if you're reading the Yen Press edition, which I thought was interesting, I read these chapters because I never had before, and it mentions something really specific. It mentions these two really specific things instead of seeing all the lights and decorations. It says that Toru used to watch, it's like the dialogue that Hana says is something like, oh, when she sees the Japan Record Awards and the Kohaku Uta Gassen, then she'll think of her mother or whatever. And those two things are two events that I didn't know about. So the Japan Record Awards is kind of like the Japanese version of the Grammys, and that runs on December 30th. And they're both like nationally televised, so it's like a common thing for people to do to watch them. The Kohaku Utagassen is it translates to Red and White Song Battle, which is run on New Year's Eve, and it's this show where they divide up popular Japanese artists into two teams, one red team and one white team, and then at the end of the show, the judges and the audience vote to decide which group performed better. So I've never seen it. I just thought that was interesting to note. Sounds really great, actually. I feel like that's better than like Rockin' New Year's Eve. I don't know. It's like a competitive version of Rockin' New Year's Eve. But anyway, yeah, it's something that everybody watches. So Hana mentions that specifically. Anyway, Hana wonders how Toru will feel doing all these things alone. And Hana is like, will she really be all right? And then we're back in the narration that's been kind of running through the series. And I guess it's Yuki maybe or Kyo or thinking like, how did she feel when she watched us leave? How does she feel right now all alone in the house? Kyo stands up and he bumps heads with Yuki, which Hana narrates like through the bottom of a couple of panels, and she's like, end of explanation. Shigure is like, what are you doing? And Kyo and Yuki ignore him, and they kind of argue with each other, and they're like, what's with you? I thought you wanted to see Aikido, and like, I wouldn't want to keep you from your precious Kagura. But they start stomping off toward Shigure's house, and Shigure's like, hey, where are you going? And they're both like, I'm going home. And so they stomp off and continue to argue, and Shigure asks if Hana planned that, and Hana is like, I don't really care what they do, I just wanted to do something nice for Toru-kun. And she wishes that Shigure has good waves in the next year, and then she takes her leave. And then Shigure kind of leaves Shigure standing there thinking like, oh, she's good. Like maybe he was also trying to convince them to go back with the burglar story. He's always trying to like lightly manipulate them into doing things, so maybe that's what the burglar story was for. And then Hana showed up to like make that a reality. Anyway, so we're back in this narration again, and the narration says, it's been 4 months since we started living together, but there's still something I haven't grasped. So if you didn't catch that, that's the exact same narration as the first part of the story, or the first part of the chapter. I let it slip by me. I never realized, because she's always smiling so pleasantly. We see Yuki and Kyo running through the woods, and the narration continues. She smiles at even the smallest things. Yes, she's always smiling, and she tells me what I most want to hear. Why didn't I realize? How could I miss that? So at peace by herself? No one is like that. We see a scene of her mother in the past giving Toru otoshidama, which is like money that adults give to kids on New Year's. The narration continues, I want to go home. I want to go home right now. I want to see her. And Kyo and Yuki burst into the house, into the living room with their coats still on, to find Toru sitting alone at the table, a photo of her mother in front of her, and tears in her eyes. And she's like, you startled me. What on earth? And Yuki reaches down and he delicately wipes a tear away from her eye, and she kind of jumps up and her hands are up in the air, and she's like, I don't, what should I say? It isn't right, me getting all emotional on New Year's Eve. I was just listening to an old Japanese folk song in my humble Japanese heart. And, Yuki and Kyo kind of like slump to the floor, and you can hear the thoughts, like whoever's thoughts they are, narrated again, saying, thank goodness, if we hadn't realized, we would have left her to cry all alone. And Toru's kind of like, are you guys okay? And she is kneeling over them with her hands like still kind of up over them. And they reply like, we're fine, we just want to see the first sunrise. And then the other is like, but not before eating some New Year's soba. And they kind of look up at her, and she looks down at them. And they're still kind of panting and like laying on the ground on the floor. Tears well up again in Toru's eyes, and she cries, maybe with the realization that they came back for her. And Yuki smiles, and Kyo kind of like frowns out of concern. And the narration says, I'm home. Back out at the main house, Shigure has arrived, and he's greeted by a younger looking guy with light hair, who Shigure calls Hakun. He says Shigure is the last to arrive, and he asks about Yuki and Kyo, to which Shigure says they ditched. And Hakun is like, oh, I can see Kagura raging like a fire and Aikido quietly steaming. Shigure says that he'll take care of Aikido. The boy says that he wanted to challenge him to a fight, but I guess he'll have to wait. And Shigure is like, please don't destroy my house. He says that he gets why Yuki and Kyo would want to skip. There are things that even he can't stand, and sometimes he wants to run away. Shigure says that he doesn't think it's because they're trying to run away. He thinks it's because of another reason. They then run into Momiji, who is already dressed to dance. He's ready to go. And Shigure goes to talk to Akito about Yuki and Kyo not being there, I think. He goes to the room where Akito is, and he greets with a good evening. Akito is looking out of the window, and then Shigure with this look, really kind of also creepy look of what I described in my notes as malevolence. It's really intense, I think, actually. He thinks, for now, you're pathetic, Akito. We cut out of the dark hellhole that is the Soma house, and to the early morning at Shigure's house, where Yuki, Kyo, and Toru have gone up to the roof to await the sunrise, the first sunrise of the year. They explain that they ran into Hana on the way to the main house, and Toru thinks that Hana will be the first person that she calls in the new year. Toru is like, are you sure it's okay that you're here? I'm not causing you trouble by being the only happy one, am I? And they're like, it's fine, we'll just go see them later. I think back in the narration, it says, right about now, they're probably all in the middle of the banquet. I wonder if Akito is mad. But strangely, I feel relieved. So this is why I think it's Yuki talking, because he says, I wonder if Akito is mad. But I feel strangely relieved. I don't feel an ounce of guilt. This time I've considered everything. I've thought things over about how I really feel and what I really wanted. We see Toru saying the sun is coming up, and ask if they decided what to wish for. She knows her wish already, and Yuki and Kyo blush. The narration continues. I think it might just be to greet the new year with her. And Kyo stands up and he's like, this year I'm gonna beat that damn rat. And Yuki's like, yeah, keep wishing. And that's the end of chapter 11. So, chapter 12. There's a lot of direct narration in this chapter as well, because it's Hatori kind of giving his own backstory. The chapter opens with Akito saying that Hatori is like snow. He's cold like snow. So we start with the narration. For a long time, if Akito or my father ordered me to, I would suppress anyone's memories. So even though I knew it would hurt Yuki, I erased his friend's memories. That's why when Akito uttered those words, in a way, he was telling the truth. And some of that narration is overlaid on a scene with a kind of younger-looking Hatori and the little baby Yuki crying on his knee. In the present, Hatori hears someone calling his name, and it's Toru who runs up and kind of happily greets him and wishes him a happy new year, and he snaps out of his memory enough to greet her back. Toru says that she almost didn't recognize him because his hair is longer. She says it looks like Shigure's, and Hatori is like, what? And turns away. And then she's like, maybe he doesn't like it like that. Hatori asks if she's alone, and she says that she's just going to make her first visit to a shrine of the year with her friends, and that Yuki and Kyo have gone to the main house. And Hatori thinks that they're lying, like they're just sitting somewhere eating under a kotatsu eating oranges. Toru asks what Hatori is doing, and he says that he's just out for a walk. He thinks that Yuki had a lot of guts not to show up at the banquet, and that it's the first time that the rat has skipped out on the banquet. But then again, who could blame him for choosing her over Akito? And he says, I know I couldn't. Or he thinks, I know I couldn't. Toru is surprised when snow starts to fall, and she, holding up her hands and looking at the sky, she says that somehow it's strange that I'm seeing the first snow with you, Hatori-san. But Toru slips on some strategically placed snow and falls backwards, so Hatori reaches out to help her, and they both fall back, and Hatori hits his head on, like, the wall behind them, I think, in the process, and of course transforms. Toru looks back into the pile of clothes where Hatori used to be and is shocked by what she finds, which is an adorable seahorse.
I think what he was planning to do by trying to catch her.
I don't know, like maybe he just I think like there's this little cut where it's like the panel of her foot and then like a shocked face, like just the top, like his eyes or something, or his hand and like a little exclamation mark, like it's very abstract, and then she's falling back into him, and it looks like there's a sound effect where his head is, and then it's a pile of clothes. So it's very it's not like step by step shown but I think he just like reacted maybe to her falling.
Trying to like grab her shoulders or something.
I don't know, but she was falling too much. I don't know exactly, but yes, so she looks down into his clothes and it's an adorable seahorse, and so she freaks out and is like, water or salt water? Which is it, Hatori-san? But Hatori slips into what I guess might be a concussion-based flashback.
As you do.
Yeah, of course. But he starts to flash back to some memories of his past. And the first one is his friends laughing and being like, why is Hasan the only weird one? You're the dragon's bastard offspring. Which is funny because so seahorse, the word for seahorse is Tatsuno Toshiko, which is, it means the dragon's bastard son. So like so anyway, I think that's why Momiji and Shigure were like chuckling in the last chapter. Toru's reaction also reminds him. Her reaction is exactly the same as Kana's. So we go into another flashback. Kana is introducing herself to Hatori. Maybe we can assume this is like her first day at Hatori's like office or clinic. It looks like it's a location that's not necessarily in the Soma house, even though he said he spends most of his time treating Somas, or specifically treating Aikido. She says it's strange that they haven't spoken until today, even though they're family. And she also says that everyone thinks he's handsome, like he's popular even on the outside, quote unquote. Hatori wants to get down to work, and he gives her a task, but she's distracted, and she says it's snowing. And she asks him, when the snow melts, what does it become? And Hatori thinks that she must be making fun of him, and he answers water, of course, to which she responds, wrong, it becomes spring. Spring is my favorite season. And then we cut into Hatori's thoughts and his narration. And he says, they say that being with another person can make you feel so much more alive. I realized that then what those people meant. To me, she was spring. It was as if, while imprisoned in the dark cage of the inner family, I'd completely frozen into snow. And then there she was, fresh, clean spring. There's more narration that's overlaid of some scenes of Hatori and Kana talking, nearly kissing, and it looks like there's some floral imagery there that looks like maybe cherry trees or sakura. His narration continues, it was almost inevitable that I would fall in love with her, but it was also almost inevitable that she would find out. And we cut to Kana looking down at a tiny seahorse, saying, water? Seawater? Which is it, Hatori? The scene continues with Kana drying Hatori off like there's a towel around his head. And he's like, if you threw a real seahorse in a bathtub, it would probably die. And she's like, she says, she apologizes, and she says that she panicked, but it all makes sense now. She always wondered why Hatori would never hold her. She says, I understand that you must have been scared. You didn't want anyone to know your secret. Naturally, you would distance yourself from other people, especially someone that you loved. But there's no need to be scared anymore. Don't push me away. I'm happy I met you, Hatori. Tears well in his eyes as she continues. I'm happy that I fell in love with you. I want to be near you. They both cry together, and then we fade back into Hatori's narration. Again over cherry blossoms, but this time's kind of losing their petals. The petals are starting to fall. He says, it was the first time in my life that I felt forgiven, like I was saved. Like the frozen snow that's melted by the breath of spring. The tears wouldn't stop. The next 2 months were literally like a dream. It's as if a lifetime of happiness has been condensed into 2 short months, she said, smiling. Now that smile pierces my heart. The end of the dream came when I went to ask Aikido for my permission to marry her. And we see Shigure pulling what looks like Aikido back, yelling, Aikido, hold on a second, calm down, stop. The next page reveals Hatori kneeling, head bent, blood dripping from his face. Kana kneels in front of him, sort of hesitant. Shigure yells, Kana-chan, hurry up, help Hatori. Hatori lowers his hands, covered in blood. Kana's eyes are wide with shock. And while this is happening, Aikido is in the background, screaming, why would I give him to you? I don't need you. You can't even break the curse. I don't need you. I don't. If Hatori goes blind, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Kana, at the bottom of the page, covers her face. In Hatori's narration again, he says, she fell ill. No matter what I said or did, she did nothing but cry. I couldn't even blame Aikido. It was the curse. And so she fell ill. Her heart fell ill. We then see a memory of Aikido talking to Hatori. His eye is bandaged, so it was relatively soon after this event, I think, happened. Aikido suggests that Hatori uses memory suppression technique. He's like, just erase your memories. You had no problem with the others. What's hurting her now is her memories of you. Isn't it your final duty to her to free her from that pain? And Aikido slinks a bit closer and grasps Hatori's tie and says, I think she wants to be released. She wants to forget. We cut to another snowy scene. Kana kneeling below Hatori. Her clothes are kind of loose and disheveled. She says, I think it would have been better if we had never met. Hatori remembers Akito's words that she wants to forget, and he thinks to himself, is this retribution? We see kind of blurry figures of Yuki and Momiji and some other shadowy figures. And he continues saying, even though it hurt people and made them cry, if it was an order, I would peel away people's memories without remorse. Is this my punishment? I never thought I'd have to erase with my own hands the memories of the one person most important to me. The memories most important to me. Hatori kneels down and covers Kana's eyes with his hand. And Kana begins to cry, and she says, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Hatori. He suppresses her memories, and they're shown in silhouette as she falls to the floor. And he remembers her words, I'm happy that I met you, Hatori. His narration again continues, I'm the one who should apologize. I'm the one who couldn't protect you. But despite that, you only thought of me until the very end. If that's the depth of her love, if that's why she became so sick, then it's not right for her to suffer. Thank you, Kana, he says. It's all right now. There's nothing there to hurt anymore. He cries as two of the main house help carry her away and thinks, oh God, please let her find someone who can make her happy. I pray even if I die surrounded by the snow that never melts. I don't care. Please, please. We cut to the present where his eyes are starting to open and he can hear Toru calling for him. Toru has gotten him up onto a bench and kind of covered him, I think, with his coat. And he's back to his human self. Hatori asks if he saw, and she's like, no. And then he's like, my zodiac. And she's like, yes. And he kind of turns away super shamefully. And she's like, I don't think it's funny. I was surprised, and you're cute. I never expected it. Hatori gets dressed, and Toru goes to find some warm drinks for them. And we overhear a conversation. There are three women who pass by Hatori in the park. And it turns out that it's Kana and two of her friends. Kana is back visiting for the new year to talk to her parents about the ceremony because she's engaged. She says he's not as good looking as Satori-san, but he's kind and he can't lie. Oh, sorry. But he's the kind who can't lie. And she feels calm around him. She was always in love with Hatori, but it was one-sided. It's the first time she's been back to the Soma house in a long time. And she wonders if she'll see Hatori, and her friends are like, don't have an affair, ha ha ha. And she's like, ha, I won't, we're madly in love. And Hatori thinks, I haven't seen her in 2 years, but she was smiling the way that she did back then. I see, so she's happy now. I'm glad. And then out loud he says, congratulations. And Toru's like, congratulations on what? And he's like, nothing. Hatori's kind of narration continues, and he thinks, time passes slowly but steadily. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't shocked, but I'm happy to know that it was a good thing I let her go. I'm glad. And he remembers again the moment that he erased her memories, and he stands up and asks Toru, when the snow melts, what do you think it becomes? Huh? She says, well, it becomes spring. No matter how cold it is now, spring will come again without fail. It's strange but true, isn't it? And Tori stands, and Toru offers him the coffee that she brought. And on the final page, we have the narration again. Someday the snow will melt, no matter how cold it is now, without fail. And that's it for this volume.
Yay.
Yay. More like crying, sad, silent tears. It's intense, those two chapters, back to back. And I felt like there wasn't more to say than just reading the narration. Like, it's... Yeah.
I think it's funny that it was like 2 chapters ago we got, like, told Hatori's backstory, and then, like, now we're like, oh, we're just going to show it.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I wonder, it's an interesting choice. Like, it's interesting that you point that out. It's an interesting choice to have it be foreshadowed and then almost immediately delivered on this backstory. I
think they combined them in the first anime.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think they do the whole flashback when Toru's visiting the first time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they have that scene of her coming back and saying that she's getting married.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But I remember I think Toru, like, slipped off of the, like, back porch or whatever.
She slips off the wraparound porch. There's a word for it that I can't remember, but yeah, she slips off the thing into his garden, and he catches her dramatically anime style instead of being concussed that way. And then it's like they cut in the whole flashback of Kana throwing Hatori into the bath.
Yeah,
you're right. I think Momiji, all of those things happen at the same time because Momiji is there, and Momiji gives the backstory too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think it's when she visits the house for the first time with Momiji and Hatori.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah,
so I don't fully remember, but I think I remember.
I think you're right.
All happening at the same time.
And then Momiji goes to get a warm drink.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he didn't bring enough, and he has this little like funny face. I remember.
Oh yeah, because then like Shigure shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and they all get drinks, and then Momiji doesn't.
Laugh.
Because after a dark backstory, all you can do is laugh. Although I guess the only one who experienced it was Hatori. So
yeah,
at that time in the anime. So it's interesting. It's delivered on right away. I guess maybe because maybe it's like just to give a little more. Well, we're slowly getting darker and darker. So, like the things that we are hearing about the Soma house, they're getting more and more intense. So maybe it's just like building up on that, and then.
Or maybe she just went, "Oh wait, I need snow for this chapter, and we're going into spring soon."
Yeah, it's New Year's, so better snow. Well, like New Year, also like it was New Year's, and New Year's is obviously like the New Year is a time of change.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is just supposed to like kind of frame how Toru is going to maybe change or kind of engender some change in the family. Like I think it's really interesting that Hatori directly compares her to Kana, and I think it's interesting that Akito was like, you can't even break the curse when he's talking about Kana. Like, I wonder if Hatori thinks this is something that's going to happen again. We did talk about last time, we speculated about why Hatori might have asked Toru to come to the house by herself to try to get her to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe this is still like he doesn't want anything bad to happen to her, like what happened to Kana. Yeah, I don't know. They're very directly compared, though.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I guess if you're not reading too deeply into it, it's just that their personalities are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's more. I mean, like the way they think about the world and things, I guess you could say that it's similar because of the way they answer when the snow melts, what does it become question. But then they also are similar in the fact that they are both getting deeper and deep. They both got, like, Kana got very deep into the family. She also found out about the secret, and Toru has as well. So maybe this is just supposed to be some like tension building, that we have like a directly foreshadowed experience here. Almost, or whatever. Yeah, it's something that happened that is being alluded to very strongly as someone being in the same situation.
Yeah, like what happened last time an outsider got.
It's about to happen
involved.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Hatori is like, I've seen this before. Yeah. Maybe. And their reactions to him transforming were exactly the same.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like, it's also just funny. Like, it's supposed to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about Hatori's zodiac form. We finally found out that he's the seahorse, Yeah. My favorite animal of the zodiac. But I guess he's supposed to represent the dragon.
So. There are some, even in English, there's some seahorse species that are called sea dragons.
Yeah, that's true. It made sense. It always made sense to me even when I read it. Before I knew that I can't remember which version it was, but I saw like a translation note or something at the end of one of the volumes that talked about why they think it's funny and like why it's a pun. But like even before I knew that, I was like, yeah, duh, I get it. He's also really cute. Like we talked about Kagura and Momiji's zodiac forms being super cute. Mm-hmm. I think Hatori's is too. I love his little like seahorse. In the anime, when he transforms, he's like, meep. And that's what I imagined when I saw it in the anime. In the manga this time when I was reading it. Not that that's true, but it just makes me chuckle every time.
It's gotta be kind of sucky to have like, they can't do anything when you transform.
He just flops around.
Happen to be in water, yeah.
Well, then she throws him into the bath, but then he's okay.
Yeah.
So like, I guess, does he even need to be in water? This is a question. Also, wild speculation. I don't think so. I wonder if he has any like Aquaman powers. Like, you think he could talk to fish?
I guess he could talk to other seahorses, but they're not that bright, so you probably can't get him to do much.
He's like, swim this way. Like, they're not very mobile fish either.
I was gonna say, then they're like, okay, but then they get swept away in the current and go the other way.
They can like hang on with their little tails.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
maybe he can give birth to live young.
Maybe. Like the junior situation or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But like, it doesn't seem like, at least that we can see in this chapter or any of the times we've seen him before, that he has any real connection with like his zodiac animal, dragon or otherwise. So
Yeah, I imagine he would have the same as everyone else. He just probably, you don't spend a lot of time near seahorses compared to like, cats.
Cats and dogs. Maybe he goes to the aquarium and they all like swim up
they
to
all,
him.
Like, press against the wall.
Yeah, they're like, hey. And they're like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? Or whatever, like the cats did when they showed up with Kyo.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm never coming here again.
Where's the fanfic? I mean, I don't, maybe we can say without spoiling a lot that I don't think that there's a lot of other kind of like detail about his zodiac form. It's just that he's a seahorse.
It's mostly there to be a gag.
Yeah. I don't know if he even transforms again that I can remember. So
probably not.
I don't think so.
A lot of them don't much after they're introduced.
Yeah. I think really only like Yuki and Kyo.
Yeah. Which, I mean, makes sense. I mean, they're trying to not transform and reveal their secret to everyone.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Because, like, I don't know if Kagura ever transforms again.
Well, she can also hug Toru without transforming, so...
Yeah.
The one who really instigates all of the transforming is Toru, so, for the most part. Yeah. I can think of some characters who do, but they haven't come up yet, like, who transform more later, so...
Yeah, and I can think of some that don't really, that come up later, so...
Yeah, but, I mean, whatever, we can...
Yeah.
We'll save it for later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was all very interesting. And I also thought it was interesting that Hatori said that this is the first time the rat has missed the banquet. Like, getting back to all things that Hatori thought, which was a lot of things.
Yeah.
And the Zodiac stuff. Like, we could talk about the banquet, which is kind of it's a big deal for the Soma family.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that the cat's not invited to the banquet, but Kyo is apparently still expected to come back home for New Year's.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the whole family comes home for New Year's. Yeah. But yeah, he's expected to go and be there, but then he's expected to just like chill and not go to the banquet. So
yeah. Hang out with the outsider people, I guess.
I guess. Can you imagine? They're like, who is that guy with orange hair? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Anyway, while they're up in the morning, like while they're up watching the sunrise, in the narration, which I'm pretty sure is Yuki's. I
think it's meant to be both.
I think at first I interpreted it as both, and then when I got to the end, and it's like, I wonder what Akito thinks. I don't know, maybe Kyo does care about what Akito thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both on some level are afraid of Akito being angry at them, so I think, because like everyone's afraid of Akito being angry.
Yeah, that's true. They did. I feel like they might have risked a lot. We know that Akito is dangerous. I feel like
I think Yuki probably risked a little more, but I think they've both been expected to be there and aren't. Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is kind of it seems like it represents how they both feel. They act again like they act in unison again in this chapter. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But they say when they're on the roof, they're like, "Oh, I bet the banquet's in full swing right now." And I'm like, "Is the banquet it's all night and like how long is the banquet?" I don't know. It's a long party.
Probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta do a dance. They gotta eat food.
You eat a lot of food, I would imagine.
They probably gotta like all individually go and see Akito.
Yeah, they probably do have to all go talk to Akito and be manipulated by Akito a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, I do think they risked a lot to be with Toru instead of the family. Would you like to talk about some Japanese New Year traditions that I have Googled to explain?
Would you like me to say yes?
Sure. So this is all like a very high level. I'll post some like additional things in the show notes for people who are really interested. But like last time we talked about is it the Lunar New Year or like the time that we would celebrate New Year's in North America? And it says, I noticed on Wikipedia that it says that they've been celebrating, in Japan they've celebrated New Year on the like Gregorian calendar date since 1873. So hope that answers your question. Or like the topic that we posed, I think. And also it is typical. So Yuki and Kyo say that they have to spend the first 3 days. They're expected to spend the first 3 days back at the Soma house of New Year. And spending the first 3 days after the New Year with your family is typical, I think, for most families. I mean, I'm sure like the draw for them is much more, the expectation is higher, but
yeah,
I think that's common. There are some common decorations that are placed at entrances and above doors. And I think like maybe that's what they were preparing before. Like I wonder, remember how Hatori was teasing Shigure about coming back to look at the decorations or the preparations for New Year's, so maybe that's what they were preparing, like preparing all of the like the decor or preparing food. There's a lot of food, like we were just talking about. There are a bunch of traditional food items. So like when Yuki and Kyo come back, they mentioned that they want to eat New Year's soba together. This is called Toshi Koshi Soba, which means like year crossing soba. Yeah, I don't know. And it's supposed to, all of the food that are traditionally eaten at around the New Year have like pun or symbolic kind of meaning, which is why people eat them. There's food called osechi, which is like food that it's a mixed bunch of food that's stored in kind of like bento box style, fancy style bento box looking things. And it's a mix of different cooked or dried or preserved things that have symbolic meaning or are considered to be auspicious. That's eaten over the first couple of days. And the reason it's all like cooked and preserved is because it used to be considered taboo to cook during the New Year, except for making ozoni, which is soup that's traditionally eaten in New Year that has mochi in it. And then some traditional activities are like visiting the shrine for the first time, which Toru mentions when she sees Hatori. Watching the first sunrise is common. I always, when I read this the first time, I thought that was just something like they did. Like maybe Toru did it with her mother, and so she convinced them to or something. Mm-hmm. But no, I think that's a common thing. There's like a specific word for it in Japanese.
I used to do that a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I got too tired to.
I never did that.
Until because the sunrise is at like 8 o'clock on New Year's.
Yeah, it's
so long.
Quite late in the morning. Yeah, I've never done that. We always just went to bed. And also, I don't know if they stay up all night. I'm not sure if they stay up all night or if they go to bed and then they wake up really early. Like, I don't know. But yeah, except for that time that me and you did that when we were in high school. I never did that. There's some other...
I used to do it like mostly when I was home from college and didn't have anything to do.
I'll stay up and watch the first sunrise. It's nice. Like, it is very... Like, watching the sunrise is... I feel like I watched the sunrise a lot when I was in university and I like worked all night. But or like when it's really, I mean, obviously, so I grew up in the States and then I moved to Canada. So like here, of course, the sun rises much later. So I'd be going to school in the morning in the winter and like be on the bus going to school and I'd get to see the sunrise. And it's like, oh, it's nice. Like it's very, watching the sunrise is very pleasant. It's just not when you're being forced. So yeah, it's nice. I could see why that would be a nice tradition. And then there are some traditional greetings, like Toru says, like, I think it's just translated as Happy New Year, but she says like a specific greeting in the Japanese. So all those things, I have some detailed links if people are really interested in learning more about that. But yeah, I'm guessing that the Soma's like preparations and decorations are probably like quite extensive. And then of course there's the banquet, which is it's like an addition on top of what the traditional kind of celebration activities and foods are. So I imagine the banquet was probably really intense.
Yeah. I wonder if the costumes are used or reused each year or if they make them custom since they're growing.
There is...
Because that could be something.
There's an author's note about it. Let me find it for you. I
saw that it was supposed to be like different for each person, but like I'm wondering if like
do they have like a set?
Yuki when he was 10 isn't gonna fit in the costume.
No. Oh, baby Yuki when he's like 18 or whatever.
When he's 18,
22 or something.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the author's note. It says in reality the costume for the dance of the Chinese zodiac is different every year, but here I have Momiji and Yuki wearing the same costume because I thought that if they had different costumes it would be hard to understand. So I guess they have different, I guess they wear different costumes every year, but I guess that means they make new costumes every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, question answered by Takaya herself. And yeah, I guess you wouldn't have seen that if you're reading a collector's edition one because all the notes are removed. So yeah, it's interesting. The banquet is interesting. Of course, Toru's really excited that they have a banquet and then is immediately disheartened when she finds out Kyo can't go.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting that they exclude him. It's like they are really trying to keep that tradition the same, it seems.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Toru's family not taking her to Hawaii? I was like, oh, I'm so deeply offended. It's like
definitely not on Tori's Christmas card list.
No. Oh, I didn't say this, but another thing that is a tradition of the New Year's writing postcards, like New Year's postcards that you send to everyone so that they're delivered on January 1st. So they're not getting her New Year's postcard rather than her Christmas card. Yeah. I forgot that was what happened. I just assumed that she didn't want to go or they didn't, I don't know. I never didn't think about it too deeply. And now it's like, it's even worse. Like they are traveling and they're leaving her. I mean, it just goes to show what kind of relationship she has with her family that's still alive, which is not a very close one. Yeah. I also thought it was really interesting that stylistically these chapters are quite similar. Like, in that both of them have really extensive narration that's overlaid across the whole thing that kind of communicates some kind of overall message. In the first one, it was like this narration that maybe we attribute to both Kyo and Yuki that talks about something that they didn't realize how much Toru was being affected. Like, she's always smiling. She's been living with them for 4 months, and they still perhaps didn't realize. I don't know. I guess like that she's being affected by. Or I would assume that what that's meant to be talking about is how deeply she's affected by not having her mother. And then of course we get Hatori's narration. That's basically it's like narrating the story of his time with Kana and what happened. It's interesting we ended up talking about them together and they're paired together because they have the same structure, and it's a structure that hasn't been used very much before. I don't think that has like deeper meaning. I just thought it was interesting to point out.
Yeah.
We can also talk about. We learned more about Hatori's memory suppression technique. Or we kind of, I mean, I don't know that we learned more about it. We just saw it in action, right?
Yeah.
In his memory. So before it was all like, he erases their memories. But we didn't know anything about it. And now we saw how he erased Kana's memories, which is that he covered her face with his hand, and then she kind of like fell backward. In the anime, there's like a little shiny light. That is like the Men in Black mind erasing thing. I think you said before.
Yeah.
We also saw like while he's thinking about in his narration he was talking about how he erased a bunch of people's memories, and you see like all these kind of shadowy figures including Yuki and Momiji. So I think it's interesting that Momiji was also included there. I mean, we know that Momiji knows about Kana, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but he's shown in that kind of little part of Hatori's memory as well.
Yeah, and he also looks pretty young, just like Yuki
does. He does. Yeah, they both look young. And
picture.
Young Hatori looks young when Momiji's there too.
I was thinking in that first bit where like Yuki's like crying on his knee there. He's in like it looks like a high school uniform, maybe a middle school uniform. Like
it does.
He's pretty young being forced to do this.
Yeah. Well, it says like okay, so I don't think it's covered in this, but I remember that like Hatori and Shigure, they're like maybe 10 years older ish than the main trio. Like they're in their late 20s, like 27. So that means they're like about 10 years older than Yuki. So say if Yuki's like, did they say when they erased his memories? Hold on, his friend's memories? I think he did say how old he was.
I don't remember.
I'm looking it up. It's great material. You may have to erase your memories. I was playing. Oh, it says I was in 2nd grade. Long ago, our secret got out like it did today. I was in 2nd grade. I was playing in the yard at home when a girl hugged me as a joke, and in the end, everyone had to have their memories erased. So if he was in 2nd grade, he's probably like 7 or 8. I don't know. I don't know when you enter school in Japan, but so yeah, make Hatori like I don't know, 17 or 18. Like maybe he was still in high school. Yeah. So yeah, he looks young too. I do think there is.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
How dare you? I do think there's an author's note. I know that there's an author's note in like a much later volume that has more detail about Hatori.
Yeah, Nishi has little profiles that has like.
Yeah, it says when he learned. I'm pretty sure it says when he learned, when he was taught the memory suppression technique. He mentioned that his father. He says like if Akito or my father ordered me to suppress anyone's memories, that I had to do it. So I guess we got some information that his father is also involved.
Yeah.
With the memory suppression. So his father knows something about it. It's not really clear yet. I thought it was interesting how at the end of the chapter, Kana says. So when Kana's talking to her friends at the very end, she's like, she remembers Hatori, so she talks about him. So it's not like she completely forgot about him, which is interesting. And she says her feelings were one-sided. It's like she remembers loving Hatori, but not how he felt or something. Like, I'm not sure what that's implying. There's also speculation, but...
I think he says, like, he's, like, erasing their time together. And, like, when she first introduces herself, she says something about how, like, everyone thinks he's handsome. So I think she probably just had, like, a crush on him beforehand. Maybe just remembers having a crush on him.
Maybe. I wonder if
not that they ever met or had a relationship.
I wonder if her friends remember that they went out, like, the people that she's with. Because they know about him. They're like, oh, just don't make sure you don't have an affair with Hatori or whatever. So, like, they must know something. They must have gone out. Maybe she, like, maybe, you know, like, in her mind she put 2 and 2 together, that she remembers how she felt about him but not the memories with him specifically or something, and that's why she thinks it's one-sided. I just think it's interesting how the all the information about how the memory suppression works is like implied, and it's implied that she doesn't remember some things, but she does remember other things about him.
Mm-hmm.
We also got, I think, a couple of times, like on a completely unrelated topic, a couple of times in other chapters we talked about them eating meals together. So I thought it was interesting that, again, at the beginning of chapter 11, they were eating and they were arguing. Like, Kyo and Yuki were arguing. And then when Toru then tells them they should go visit their families, and they, like, chill out, and they decide to go back. And then also when they come back, Toru's sitting at the table alone, and she's not eating anything. Like, she's sitting and looking at her mother. And then when they come back, they also talk about, like, having a meal together. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, again, like, that act of eating together is, like, used to frame a chapter, right? And the fact that they also skip out on the banquet, which is a big deal, like a huge meal that apparently lasts for a long time, is also part of that. They're choosing to be in this, like, other situation with this other person rather than going to the banquet, and it's seen as being a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just something
also, like, the use of the word home in that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they keep talking about, like, going home for New Year's, which means the Soma estate. But then when they are deciding to go back to Toru, they say, like, we're going home, and I want to go home. So
I want to go home. Yeah, you're totally right.
The real home is with Toru.
Mm-hmm. And Toru's like, oh, I'm staying here, like, as if that's, if you go and be with your family during New Year's, then yeah, she's there, and they come back to be with her. You're totally right.
Yeah. And I think that the ending scene with them coming back and then going up on the roof is another iconic moment.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes,
the series.
Yeah, there was another iconic. Oh yeah, no. The other iconic scene is though the Hatori's cold like snow, or like when the snow melts, what does it become? Is also very iconic.
Yeah. I'm also gonna call that a theme. No matter how cold it is now, the snow will melt.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's like a lot of these two chapters had a lot of talk of change. Mm-hmm. Like the New Year, I think I said it just like 5 seconds ago, but the New Year itself is seen as a big time of change. The fact the sun is coming up, like it's the dawn of a new day. Mm-hmm. There's other additional, like the snow melting imagery. There's a lot of floral imagery in these chapters. Yeah. I have a half-formed theory about the floral imagery, which I'm working on. There's a lot of, like, so not in this chapter, and I didn't talk about it last time, but in the first chapter with, the first time, like when Momiji talks about Hatori's backstory with Aikido, there's a tree, there's like what looks like a Japanese maple tree shown, and the leaves are falling, so as if it's like setting up for this. Mm-hmm. Then we get into these chapters where the trees are blooming, like behind Toru, even on the first page where there's that narration where it's like Toru's not an ordinary girl, she's been living with for 4 months, and like she doesn't think like other people or whatever. There is a tree that's blooming and has buds on it. I'm not sure what tree it's supposed to be. I spent a lot of time Googling it, but it's like, regardless of what type of tree it is, it's flowering. And then there's a lot of this like floral imagery that's clearly cherry blossom trees with in Hatori and Kana's backstory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of sort of representing how short their time together was.
Yes,
like it shows them like blooming at the beginning and then starting to fall off. And I think cherry blossoms are kind of like known for being short-lived.
Yes, according flowers. To so there's like a whole, just like there's flower symbolism in Western culture, there's like significant flower symbolism specifically in Japanese culture too, and the cherry blossom does represent, as like typically used to represent, the sort of like fleeting and passing of time and ephemeral nature of things, such as their relationship. Did you notice that it said that they were only together for 2 months?
Yeah,
I never noticed that before. 2 months they were together. Must have been true love.
I was just thinking of was it Fall Out Boy? Like, you're a cherry blossom. Look so pretty, but you're gone
so soon. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's remember centuries or whatever. Yeah. Get the MMB out. That's all I say. We write the fanfic for whatever I said about Hatori earlier, Hatori and the seahorses at the aquarium, and then we make a MMB for centuries.
Probably could make a good one for that.
Probably, because it has Lily Remember Me for centuries.
Symbolic
Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold. All right, well, I'll get right on that after we finish this podcast.
Someone other than me should try to do that, because I can't.
Yeah, I would enjoy it. But yeah, there's a lot of imagery of change. I think like snow is also ephemeral. Like we know that it's not going to be there forever, even though Hatori is like, if I'm covered in snow forever, then or if I'm like, you know, frozen forever in the dark snow of the family or whatever he says. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just putting words together. I wonder, I need to look more closely. I didn't look very closely at all of his narration in the Japanese. I checked one thing, which was to see how he describes his feelings for Kana, which is kind of interesting. So a lot of times in anime or in manga, you see that people say, like, it gets translated as I love you, but they say, like, ski or daisuki. Mm-hmm. And if you start to dig into Japanese at all, then you know that that's also how you say, like, I like something, or like this. Like, I could say, like, whatever. Furubacanon daisuki or whatever. Like I really like Fruits Basket. But then there's this part where Hatori says it's like it was inevitable that I would fall in love with her, and what he actually, the word that he uses is I, so like aishite, like the phrase you would be familiar with is like aishiteru. So I looked those up a little bit. So people had some interesting comments about them. Let me just open them, because I wasn't really planning to talk about it, but now I am. So and I'll also post these articles in the thing in case you're interested, because there are a couple of phrases. So like I already described kind of ski and daisuki, which is just like to like or to be fond of. But then there are other words for love, like I or koi. Kayla, you would be familiar with the word koi from that card Catch You Catch Me. Yeah. She's like koi shiteru. That's like one of the last lines, right? Yeah.
No, that's going to be stuck in my head for a week, so thank you.
I'm not sorry. So the difference between, so I have like an interesting, like, I like looking at forums for some of these like connotations between words, because people have interesting interpretations of them from like their own personal experience and stuff. So some people are saying that like koi is something that you fall into. It's more like being infatuated. I is something that you do actively. It more generally means love. Sometimes they show, like, in these articles, there are some charts that compare, like, words that have the word koi in them versus words that have the word I in them. So, hold on, I'm looking for one. So words containing, let's go words containing koi first. So, for example, there are some phrases with the word koi, like, this is from an article on ThoughtCo, which, if you're looking up Japanese stuff, they usually have interesting articles, too. So some words that contain koi are like hatsukoi, which means first love. Koibito is like one's boyfriend or lover or girlfriend. Koibumi is love letter. Koigataki is a rival in love. So just keep those in your mind for a second, because then you have words with I in them, are like ai dokusho is one's favorite book. Aijo is affection. Ai kenka is a dog lover. Aisha is like a car, one's cherished car, it says. It's the word I and the word for car. And then hakuai is philanthropy. So, like, I think, like, the word I is more, it's more like a deeper, so the word, like, koi is more like infatuation. The word I is more like, or like infatuation or like romantic love. The word I is more like a deeper connected love. So versus like just like car. Liking to your car, exactly. I don't know. I'm just saying those are words that have it. The koi ones are like really clear what it's supposed to be, right? Like a lover, a love letter, or like a way of interpreting it, I think. So Hatori says there's all these phrases where kana is like someone you cared about. She says like tsukina hito or something instead, like someone that you like. Hatori says, when he says it's inevitable that I would fall in love with her, he says I, like aishiteru. So I think that his feelings for her were quite deep. He wasn't just infatuated with her, like he deeply loved her. I feel like that makes it even more sad. Like the first time I read that, one of the very first things I did when I got the Japanese collector's edition, that was one of the very first things that I looked at, because I wanted to see what he actually said. This was before we did this podcast, like a long time ago. And so I was like, wow, it's even worse than before to myself. It's really sad. It's very he deeply cared about her, was beyond being infatuated with her. And then it makes that line that she says even deeper, where she's like, it was one-sided. Like, not even deeper, it makes it dig even deeper that it was that she's like, all my feelings were one-sided. That was kind of a tangent about something that I think is really interesting about, specifically about especially shoujo manga and anime. Like the way that people talk about how they feel about love is always really interesting, and it's difficult to translate specifically. So he really deeply loved her. It's interesting that only after 2 months they asked to be engaged, which turned out not well for Tori. So turned out not well for either of them. Why were we talking about this?
Because you did research and you wanted to talk about
I wanted to tell you.
I don't know, we're talking about like how long the relationship was.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to say that their relationship was short, but his feelings for her were quite deep, I think. It was more than just that they liked each other. Yeah. One might say. We saw what happened to Hatori's eye. Well, we kind of saw that his eye was damaged. And I think the timeline is really interesting. So it says that he hasn't seen her in 2 years at the end of the series. At the end of the chapter. It said that it had been 2 years since he's seen her. And it's like the event where Akito damages his eye and yells at them happens, and then Akito is like, you should erase her memories, and you can see that his eye is still damaged, like it's still bandaged in that scene, so it must not have been that long after. And then by the time that he actually erases Kana's memories, the bandage is off, and you can see that his eye is, like, I guess healed. Like, it's very prominently shown when he's talking to her, his left eye, so it's no longer bandaged. So I wonder how long it was in between all of those events happening. It seems like it was a while. It was also something I never really took deep notice of, but I did this time, and I was like, man, now he has the bandage, now he doesn't. Like, it must have been a while. It's not like your eye heals that quickly. It's intense. And then the fact that Akito yells at her, the way that Akito yells is very interesting. Like, we heard that Akito can be violent, I think, but we've never really seen it. Is this the first time?
I think so.
I think so.
We had it mentioned, we were talking about the last chapters, we were talking about how it's kind of the first hint of, like, one of the reasons why they're afraid of Akito. Akito can be pretty violent at times, because they talked about Akito hurting Hatori's eye, but didn't show it specifically.
Yeah, it might be a bit, I don't know, we've read this before, so maybe it's not that shocking, but maybe it was the first time. I don't remember. It's
pretty bloody.
It's pretty intense.
Shoujo manga.
Yeah, for like 12-year-old girl manga. Yeah. Yes. And it's quite intense when the anime is pretty intense. There's like blood spatter and everything.
Yeah.
When he pulls his hands away, they're just like covered in blood. And all the way that Kana reacts is she just like covers her eyes. It's really sad. So the characters always say, and I also didn't look this up in Japanese because I don't know, whatever, but the characters say that she becomes heartsick. Like as if she's depressed or something. It's not super clear, but she looks quite disheveled when he finally erases her memories. I wonder if that has to do with how she was coping. Like, she wasn't coping with it, so.
Yeah, she's obviously traumatized and guilty.
Yes, and it's sad. It's so sad that she apologizes to Hatori, and then he's like, I'm the one who should apologize. It's so sad that if her like affection was that so deep that she couldn't, like, forgive herself for not protecting me, then maybe it's better. He struggles a lot with if it was the right decision or not, and then when he sees her again at the end, he thinks that it was the right decision to erase her memories. I think that it was interesting. I think like Akito kind of manipulated him into doing it, though. Like, it looks like what the activities that are happening when Akito is talking to him, and he's like, well, maybe you should just use your memory suppression technique. And Akito is like kind of clutching his tie, getting really like close. Akito is standing and Hatori is sitting. So we talked about before how that the position of people kind of can indicate who's in control in a situation.
Yeah.
And Hatori is kneeling.
Yeah, and Akito's like whispering it into his ear.
Yeah. It seems like it's also manipulation. It was dark. These were some dark chapters. But then kind of uplifting. I guess like you get at the end of the first chapter, Kyo and Yuki come back to spend time with Toru, and the sun rises at the end. And then in this case, Hatori sees Kana, and I think he's kind of like he feels better, like that she's better off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's really like closure for him, but he certainly, at least it kind of closes the loop on his feelings that he was struggling with, perhaps, before the series began. For 2 years, perhaps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The other note I made was about like Hatori's office in the flashback.
Right.
Because he talks about like in the current time, he says that he doesn't work at a clinic and he just treats Akito, and the other someone's like Yuki.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if like he used to, and like maybe after all of that he withdrew more and maybe staying more on the inside.
Maybe he did start to withdraw more. I mean, it's kind of interesting that they have she's like Kana says like you're popular even on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if they were treating outside people, or if he was only like, you wouldn't need a clinic to treat like 20 people, I don't think.
No, but I don't think Kana would be working there if it was on the inside.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It seems like they have a private clinic or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to treat, if you had like 150 patients, I mean, I don't know what a regular doctor's practice is normally. Mm-hmm. If you were treating the whole family, like you could probably sustain a clinic.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe you're right. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore. I always just assumed that he continued to do that, but it's not clear.
Mm-hmm. But I think he specifically says he doesn't like have a clinic that he works at. He just like mostly treats Akito.
Maybe that's why. Maybe you're right then. Maybe that's why he withdrew. Like, I feel like it's a good speculative point to make, that like he didn't want to be closer to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Hatori is one of the people who's really withdrawn into the inner family.
Yeah.
Like he purposely tries to not be connected.
Yeah. He's one of the only adult characters who still lives there.
Yeah, you're right.
Because Momiji talks about how like once they're adults they can leave if they want.
Mm-hmm. And we know Shigure lives outside.
And Shigure left, but Hatori's still there, so
yeah,
it's a conscious choice.
There's a lot of talk of Hatori not being able to do something that Akito doesn't tell him to do, or like he does whatever Akito says, I guess, is more like the inverse of what I said.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the others, I think, are more comfortable not doing what Akito said, or testing what Akito says, I guess.
Yeah.
Like Shigure willing to go in and flaunt that Yuki and Kyo aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like he's very, I don't know if like he feels obligated to Akito more, or like it seems like Akito's got him under his thumb.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else?
No, that was it.
All right. I think that's it for this time. I thought this episode, it has so many things that are revealed, but then I was also, it's just like, the last episode, it's like foreshadowed all of these things, so we talked so much in depth in the last episode. Now, like, we're here, it's like, oh, okay. Well, it just, like, represented, like you said, it just represents what, from Hatori's point of view, what happened between him and Kana. And then the other chapter was the events happening at New Year's that were foreshadowed in the visit to the main house. So, thank you all for listening. Stick around for spoilery discussion after the music if you're listening to that. Next episode, we're going to talk about chapters 13 and 14, and you can find us at all the places, like Tumblr, staytogetherpodcast.com. You can email us. And just once again, thank you all for listening and for supporting this podcast and for spreading the word. And we'll see you next time to talk about chapters 13 and 14.
Bye-bye.
Bye! So we're back to talk about spoilers. I also felt like we talked there was way more talk about spoilers in the last one than I feel like there's going to be this time, just like I said, because we talked about so many things before. I think there's one spoiler that is interesting, which is that like I said, I think one of the very last things I said was that we got this story about Hatori and Kana from Hatori's point of view, because we get more information about what happened to Kana later when Mayuko goes to visit her. Which is, it's like also extra sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at her friends at the end of the chapter to see if one was supposed to be Mayuko, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think Mayuko's made an appearance yet, even. Like, all the times they're talking at school, it's like the student reps. There's, like, never a teacher. I don't think we've seen her yet.
I'm trying to remember.
I'll break out the
because there's
thing again.
The part when she first shows up and she like tells the kids to call her great teacher Mayuko, but I can't remember if we passed that or not. But I think that's her first appearance.
We've definitely not passed that.
I don't think so, because I think we would have made a comment.
No, we definitely would have made a comment because it's hilarious.
It's a reference no one gets anymore.
And I love Mayuko. This is one of my favorite characters. Yeah, like every time they're at school, it's like all just the kids.
You get some more somas.
Yeah, we
sort of introduced and implied.
Yeah, well, we got Haru, and I had to call him Hakun again, once again.
Yeah, everyone's introduced with a nickname.
I know.
Yeah, so we got Hatsuharu, and they also mention that Momiji will be dancing with the tiger.
Yes, so. You're right. I also didn't say that at all. It was just like the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds really cute, Momiji and Kisa.
Oh, it'd be adorable. I bet that's like the happiest dance of all the dances.
Yeah. I feel like any dance with Momiji
it's probably pretty good. I feel like Yuki, the fact that Shigure is like Yuki's dance was beautiful is probably because Yuki like tried really hard to do a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that we have Haru calling Shigure sensei.
Did he call him that? Yeah. Okay, good. I didn't call that out. Yeah. I think it's that the backstory behind that doesn't come up until much later, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, on the topic of the dances, I bet you Shigure and Kureno's dance is like the most tense. Now I feel
like Kureno's just like there, just going through the motions, and Shigure is just like filled with hate.
Yeah, probably. It's like a Jane Austen novel when they dance.
Just like, I want to go back home.
You mean back to the main house? He just wants to get away from Shigure.
Yeah.
Shigure probably stares at him across the room the whole time and like makes spitballs, and that banquet is probably chaos. Like, can you imagine? It's like Yuki, Kyo, and Haru are fighting the whole time. Rin is sulking. Akito's probably sulking, regardless. I think there's a scene later where they're actually at the banquet. Like, not, I think there is one where because another banquet comes up, because the series takes place over 2 years. I think that time they do go back. I'm having a memory of it.
I think there's at least some, like, flashbacks of scenes at the banquet.
I think so. Yuki, like, because I think Yuki sits next to Akito and then says something that pisses him off. I think that's when Hatori ruffles Yuki's hair that we talked about last episode. So, and it's adorable. Yeah. Anyway, the banquet must be extravagant and chaotic. I also can't imagine can you imagine the banquet when they were like 3? Like, when did they start having the banquet when they were all little kids? Like, do they?
Yeah.
I mean,
I wonder what they do when like one of the members of the Zodiac isn't there, because they say that later on that not all of them are around at the same time. That this has been the first time all the spirits are present for a while. Yeah. Maybe do like some kind of symbolic dance or something.
Maybe. Yeah, actually, I don't know. Maybe they do something different. They dance by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe they only started doing the dance thing when all of them were there or something. I don't know.
Maybe it's like only a thing when maybe they only do the like full banquet when everyone's there.
Maybe. Although they said Hatori said it was the first time the rat skipped the banquet. So like I wonder if he just meant specifically Yuki, but I think he would have said it's the first time Yuki skipped it. He probably meant the rat spirit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they've been all there in the past. It's just been a while.
Yeah, maybe.
So maybe like whenever the rat has been present,
the rat is always there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. This hopefully we learn a little bit more about it. I think there's like not much more that we learned about it, but it's just again like keeping the fact that they have the banquet it's repeating the same thing over and over again. And Kyo is excluded, trying to keep things the same.
Yeah, there's like all the talk, especially later on, about like the endless banquet to keep it going.
Yeah, you're right. It's like already foreshadowed here too, that it's a big deal that they didn't go.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just don't remember any bad things happening, any fallout from this happening.
Well, if I remember right, this is why Akito comes to the school.
Oh.
in, I think, the next volume.
Maybe.
Because I think Akito's like...
Akito's like, you missed
talking
out on
to Yuki,
the banquet,
it's like, I missed you at New Year's.
I don't think it's like, I missed...
when pretending to be all cheerful.
I was going to say, I don't think it's like that. I think it's like, I missed you at New Year's.
It actually is at first, I think. Like, there's obviously menace behind the words, but like when Akito first shows up, he acts very friendly to Toru and Yuki, and then there's like the menace that comes up in the background. So like at first it's like, oh, I missed you at New Year's. It hurt me that you didn't come.
Yeah, it hurt me that you didn't come. I'm manipulating you. Yeah, exactly. With my words. Yeah. Well, plus Yuki's face the whole time, I think, is like also terrified.
Yeah, he's completely terrified when he's there.
Every time he's around Akito, especially that time though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting. I didn't remember that it was the first time the rat skipped. Of course, I remember that Kyo was not invited.
Yeah. I remember that Kyo wasn't invited, but also I didn't really remember that he still had pressure to go back to the house for New Year's, even though he wasn't at the banquet.
Yeah, he had to go be there, which is interesting that you said earlier. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, do you think, I guess maybe Shisho would be there too.
Yeah. Man, it's just like rubbing it in. It's like, you have to come, but you still can't go to the banquet.
Yeah, it's on purpose, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's like 90% of some traditions are just to spite the cat.
Yeah. I mean, and that's also like on purpose.
Yeah.
And to keep everyone out. The fact that they even let people in, I guess, let them in the main house area during New Year's is a big deal. I never realized that. Well, like I knew Kana was like on the outside. I knew that, but I didn't realize that she knew about the inside versus the outside. Like I always wondered if people knew, if other somas knew about that. It wasn't just like a Juunishi, like inside people were all like, oh, the outside, you know? No, they all know about that.
Yeah, I think they'd realize that there's a whole huge section of the family estate they're not allowed in.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wonder, so when Akito was yelling at Kana, Akito says she can't even break the curse. And like, I wonder if they thought that she was going to, or if Akito's just saying that. Like, why would Akito say that specifically, I wonder?
I think Akito's like, I think there's some things that come up where it's just like, what's the point of you for like any outsider? Like, I think Akito's got this like, what, you're not going to do anything, so what's the point of you even being here?
More like, there's nothing you can do.
You can't do anything,
Yeah, maybe. And then, of course, like, the way that Kana and Toru are directly compared is interesting. This is like, I don't know if this is particularly spoilery, but then I do think it's interesting that they are compared. It's like, it's almost like Toru was more, she's able to break the curse, but then Kana isn't. Like, I wonder why. I don't know. It's interesting they're set up as like a direct comparison, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's also kind of a comparison to like when Yuki's first telling Toru about the memory suppression thing, she's saying that like no matter what happens, I'm glad I met you and please be my friend again. So I think that's kind of a comparison to the whole thing with Kana. Like it would be better if we'd never met.
Yeah, she changes her mind.
Yeah.
But she still thinks, she treats it like it's her fault though. Like it'd be better if we never met.
Yeah, I think sure.
Because I couldn't protect you.
Opinion there, is if we'd never met, you wouldn't have gotten hurt because of me.
Versus Toru is like, I still want to be with you. Although Kana said that too when Hatori transformed. She's like, I want to be close to you, she says.
Yeah.
But then she's like, I can understand why you wouldn't want me to be. Or you wouldn't want to be close to people. I mean, yeah. It's also not the first time in the series that we have someone who breaks down because of finding out about the curse. With someone that they love. Like, it's like more like Momiji's mom, maybe. Momiji's mother also was just like, it'd be better to forget. I can't remember exactly what she says, but isn't that kind of the gist? Yeah.
She says it in a much more terrible way.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I wish that thing could never come out of my body or something. Really, really awful. And then you have like Kyo's mother, who also was kind of driven to potentially to suicide, right? Based on her feelings about Kyo. The curse, I mean, comes with a side of mental damage, I'm sure. Yeah. For everyone, like for outsiders, it's going to happen to Toru too.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone who finds out also gets, like Hatori erasing their memories, it just helps them to forget. But if they stay involved with the family, it's like they're brought into the darkness too.
Yeah. And that's, the other obvious spoiler from the spoiler discussion in the chapter is that we see Momiji in the flashback to Tori.
I called it out really subtly.
Yeah. Which we don't get not a couple volumes before we get that backstory. I think it's in volume 4 or 5.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like you can overlook it because he gave us the backstory about Hatori. But like, yeah, it's clearly alluding to that as well. And then there's like, I liked how there were some other kind of like shadowy figures in the distance. Like maybe those are like implied that it's the kids, or maybe it's just like all these people whose memories is erased. Like I wonder how many people have found out about the curse.
Yeah.
Like the fact
he
that
makes it sound like he's done it a fair few times.
Yeah. And he's like, I never cared before. Yeah. But who knew? Maybe this is my retribution for erasing all those people's memories. To have to erase Kanna's. It seemed like it was also, I don't know if Hatori wanted to erase her memories. Like the scene where Kido is clearly manipulating him, like I don't know if it was like he did it because Kido suggested it. I think in the episode before this I said that Hatori voluntarily erased Kanna's memories or something. I made a comment that was like, until he voluntarily erased Kanna's, and then I was thinking about it after I was listening to it, editing it, and I was like, maybe he didn't though. I mean, it wasn't.
I think he's probably like torn about it, and Akito kind of tipped him one way or the other. Like it might not have even occurred to him until Akito said it, but then like he was able to be convinced that it was a good idea, and even at the end of the chapter, he thinks it was the end that it was a good idea. Yeah,
perhaps.
I mean, Akito's definitely manipulating there, but I don't think it was completely against his will either.
It's somewhere in between, I think. Yeah. Like you were right. Maybe he just didn't think about it. Maybe I mean, I assume that he's trying to take care of Kanna. Like he's like, no matter what I said or did, like nothing changed. Like if it's implied that he's trying to do other things.
Yeah, and I think you can read, like you were talking about, how there was some time passage with his eye healing.
Yeah,
you can read that as kind of putting it off and seeing if anything he does will change things, and then finally deciding that it was for the best.
Yeah, maybe. It does seem like it's a long time. Like I don't know how long it would take, and also it didn't show exactly what Akito did, and if my memory is correct, it's like he threw a pot at Hatori's face.
Yeah,
right. That's what it is in the anime.
Shows it in the anime. I don't know if it ever.
I can't remember if they show it. I think they do in that other chapter with Mayuko, the one where it's like also talks about what Kanna was like after. I think it might be in that, but I honestly don't remember. Yeah. I think it does come back, but yeah, I don't know how long it takes you to recover from getting hit in the head with pottery. So. I would imagine it would take a while. Yeah. Because they're going to have to stitch your face up and.
Pretty finicky.
Yeah.
I think face injuries actually heal pretty quickly because there's a lot of blood supply there, but I don't know about eye injuries.
And they also like stitch you up real good so that you don't have scars. I also have a headcanon that Hatori has really bad scars from this. I think he must. There's no way that he couldn't. Yeah, and they say that he's almost blind in his eye. So I assume that it didn't heal well. But yeah, it seems like definitely a fair amount of time has passed.
Side note, isn't Hatori the one we see driving most?
I know! What the hell? Yes. Yes.
Like no peripheral vision?
Yes.
Depth perception?
Yes. Well, you can have monocular depth perception, but not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've also wondered about that. He's the only one who drives.
Yeah.
I think that Akito sometimes has a driver who's not Hatori. But yeah, Hatori's the only one out of the Juunishi who drives. No, with his eye. It's because he's the only responsible one. It has nothing to do with his eye. No, you're right.
Doesn't matter how responsible you are if you can't see the truck coming at you.
Whatever. Don't question the canon. Yeah, no, you're right though. He's almost blind in his left eye, and yet he drives. So whatever. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting they're compared. I don't have any other spoilery things to say about that. Again, we can talk about how the curse is changing, like the seahorse. The fact that, like, Hatori is a seahorse, Momiji, or, like, the Kagura is, like, a baby boar. Like, Shigure says later that they have a theory that, or, like, maybe he has a theory that the animals are changing and they're becoming less like their original forms because the curse is getting weaker, like, the bond is getting weaker. Yeah. The fact that the rat skips the banquet, I wouldn't be surprised if that contributes to that. Without this, like, returning over and over again to the same place to do the same ritual, it's probably contributing to weakening the curse.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about just, like, breaking the old habits. Because I was talking about how, like, more of them being, like, friendlier to the cat and to each other.
And then spending more time with outside people, not being so much inside the main house or whatever, surrounded by the same people. Yeah.
Does that mean they, like, used to just transform into, like, a straight up dragon?
I don't know. That's what's implied.
Yeah.
Maybe
like,
it was
how long ago did it change? Because they still think it's funny that he turned into the seahorse.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem like it hasn't been.
Maybe he's the first
dragon with the seahorse.
Maybe he's the first seahorse. Maybe they transform into, like, a little dragon like Mushu from Mulan.
Maybe. Because it requires some serious memory suppression if you accidentally transform into a dragon in the middle of the street.
Yes. Can you imagine? or like a huge boar or an ox. Yeah, I don't know. All good questions.
Yeah.
I wonder. That's what's implied for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, we also saw Ayame from behind.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was like Shiguren. Yeah. Oh wait, I mean his friends. Yeah. I almost said it. I think while we were talking.
Mm-hmm. You're like his friends. Like you see Shigure and someone else.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wrote specifically in here like it was like Shigure and another friend or something in my notes. Yeah. And Shigure says, and one of them says that it's funny how he's the dragon's bastard child or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ayame with his braid.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting that Haru shows up. I didn't remember that he was there this early. Yeah. Like the time that I remember him coming is the race, the run or whatever that they have to do for school.
Yeah, it's kind of foreshadowed with him saying you'll have to challenge him to a fight.
Kyo again, as you corrected me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they want to fight. I like how Shigure was like, please don't break my house.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like, he was going to fight at the New Year celebration. It would be chaotic.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When they're can you imagine all of them together? It's like, yeah, so Kyo, Yuki, Haru are all fighting. Kagura is probably beating up Kyo. Akito is like off in the distance brooding. Yuki's probably with Akito. Kisa and Hiro are like hiding in the corner. Rin is probably passed out because she's sick. Yeah, Shigure and Kureno are exchanging hate glances full of hatred.
Momiji's eating all the snacks.
Yeah, Momiji's eating all the snacks that everybody else wants to eat. And then, like, Ayame and Shigure are teasing Hatori, and Hatori is busy being sad because Kana's gone. It's like, was that everyone? I think so. Yeah, it's probably chaos. I can't imagine. Mm-hmm. Anyway, on that note, thank you all for listening. You can find us at all the Stay Together podcast places, and you can email us or send us ask on Tumblr if you want to reach out to us. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.